Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright, and right over there is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Hi, Nikki Kinzer.
Speaking of which, before we go on, I needed to watch something funny this weekend. And so I watched Parks and Rec.
Of course you did.
And I wanted to watch, I'm starting it from when Rob Lowe comes.
Which is, as you do.
Because Rob Lowe is really happy.
Yes. So happy.
And so, so it totally made my afternoon because I got to see him in action in his comedy best.
So great. He's so great. So funny. So athletic. Always running.
Oh, he's running fast too.
Always, yeah. Do you watch Schitt's Creek?
I started to, and then I stopped. So it is one of those things that I want to look at again because I know it's supposed to be just hilarious.
Well, we're like you. We started and then stopped, and then everybody said,
tells you
please
to do it.
Stop stopping and start watching immediately. Binge it. It's easy. And we're now about through season 2, and I get it. It's delightful. It's delightful, and I have fallen in love with all these characters. Like, it starts, and they're so superficial that you're like, I'm never going to fall in love with these people. But you do. I'm sorry. You just do. I just love them.
Aww.
I love them. They learn such valuable lessons, and they're great. So that's one I'm a big fan of. Hey, also, it's our season ending, and clearly we're ready to talk about TV.
I guess so. I don't know what that says, but
I know. And I'm sure, like, I mentioned Schitt's Creek, and I'm sure the comments are going to blow up with people who are like, you're only getting to it now? I know. But hey, that's where we are. And maybe I'll finish it in July because we're taking a little time off. Before we talk about the details, though, head over to TakeControlADHD.com. Get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to the mailing list, and we will send you an email each time a new episode is released. You can find us on Twitter or Facebook at Take Control ADHD. And if this show has ever touched you, if you've ever made a change in your life with ADHD that has helped you, we encourage you to head over to patreon.com/the ADHD podcast, where you can support us for a few bucks a month. You can actually join the team here, join the community, get access to some super secret channels in our online Discord community, get the podcast a week early in most cases, and get early access to that, and join us for live streams as we record. You could be watching the show live. And in fact, as we do our year-end review, some of these comments came in related directly to the live stream experience that we will be sharing a little bit. It's very exciting. And so, again, patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. Okay.
So I have to ask, because there is a particular live stream episode or moment that everybody loves. Is there any way to put that moment? Like, can you capture that video?
I can capture the video. I can go back and find that.
And do you want to put yourself out there?
It doesn't work as well on the audio, but I can put a link to it in the show notes.
That's what I would do. Is I would say let's put the link in the show notes. So anybody that is a fan of Pete Wright and wants to see him get scared, they need to press this link. Or if you ever just need a good laugh.
Oh my goodness.
We're gonna put you out there, Pete.
My goodness.
We'll talk about it soon, but it was one of my most favorite moments for sure.
This is the end of our first season since we started talking about seasons.
Is it? Okay, that's what I thought. Because when I was thinking, this is a review like no other, because it's the first one we've ever done. That's what I was thinking. But so tell people about what these seasons are.
Well, what are the seasons? So what we decided to do, because so many, the podcasting tools change over time. And before, you just having a long-running show with a different episode every single week was the norm. And then a couple of years ago, Apple Podcasts started including support for seasons. And now a lot of the tools really lean towards seasons. They want to see the seasons. It's organized by season. You get episode numbering by season. So some of this was driven by technology. And when I started thinking about the technology, I went to Nikki and I was like, we might be able to rethink the narrative of the podcast if we break up these into smaller chunks, right? That says, hey,
Right.
if we take a natural break in July, we take another shorter natural break in December, why don't we make those our seasons? Not like a 12 episode, Netflix season, but, roughly 24, 25 episodes, and do 2 seasons a year with our breaks in between them.
Mm-hmm.
And Nikki said, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So we did. That was the transition. And so as a result, we end up with a significant sort of rejiggering of our shows. And, once we broke them up into seasons, this season we're wrapping up is season 22, which is kind
Wow.
of exciting. It just feels like, it's a bigger number. It feels nice. Season
We've been around
22.
for a while.
We've been around for a while. And so
Yeah.
all of our episode numbering going forward was changed. We're going to start out with season 23 in August. It's going to be very, very exciting. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we also, the old numbering puts us coming up this season on episode 500, our 500th podcast episode,
Wow.
which is very exciting. And that number is now kind of buried in the fact that we've moved to seasons. But I am keeping track
Oh,
of
good.
those numbers because I am curious, what is going to be episode 500? That seems kind of momentous, doesn't it?
It
to you?
really does.
500.
Wow. All right. We're going to have to think about that. Listeners, give us
So
your feedback.
that'll be in season
Mhm.
23 at some point, I think. We'll have to game out those
I think we're
numbers and see
close.
what
I
those.
do think we're
very
really close. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
know, for example, today it might be. We'll hit episode. Yeah. So episode 1 of season 23 will be show number 486.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're knocking on the door.
Wow.
So that's what the season thing is. When you hear us talk about seasons, that's what happens. Seasons give us a chance to take a break, plan the next batch of episodes, to think about changes we might like to make to the show, to how we do things for our members, that sort of thing. It's just really a built-in break to be conscientious podcasters.
This is our first review then. This is our
we're doing
first
a little
end of the
review.
season review. Yeah. So the way that we have sort of organized the materials, I have some thoughts and Pete has some thoughts, and then we also got some feedback from some of our Patreon members, and Pete and I also have the list of shows in front of us too. So who knows what might grab our attention. This is the thing, though, Pete. This was an interesting year for sure, right? Because of COVID. So
Mhm.
if you look at this last season, it's from August 2020 to now, right?
Well, actually, that's 2 seasons because we take the break in December.
Oh,
So this season actually is only from January.
So I went even farther back.
You did.
I
Yeah,
did.
I did too.
Okay.
So don't worry about it. But
See,
just so
we
you
don't
know,
really know what we're doing.
we don't know
yet.
what we're doing. It's all very new, very new.
It's all very new.
But
All right.
I actually think your point is a really good one because the last 2 seasons have therefore been very strange.
Well, right, because they've all been centered around, well, our shows haven't been centered around COVID, but they are in the environment of COVID around us for sure. And a lot of unknowns, right, about COVID, about vaccines. We knew that many businesses were still being closed or open with really strict protocols. I think in January, especially if we look at January, we knew that people were still working from home and students were still online. So we were still kind of going through that process and looking at it that way. To now, when we look at what we're looking ahead in the fall, students are expected to be in class, which is great.
Yep.
Many companies are requiring employees to come back to work to the office, at least, for part of the week. So I wouldn't say by any means that we're going back to normal, because normal is going to be different. I mean, it's going to be like a pre-COVID
community by community. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be very different. But I really like where we're headed.
That feels good. That's an optimistic way to put it.
Right? I really like where we're headed. And so over the course of our different shows and topics, we've had some wonderful guests Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
been so lucky to talk to these wonderful people who are not only experts in ADHD, but they're very kind and very generous with their wisdom and willing to share what they know. And I know I've learned a lot. I think, I know, I'm not even going to say think. I know that every single person that we've had on the show, I've learned something,
Hmm.
come away with some kind of nugget that I'm going to share with my community, with the people that I coach, and we share with Discord, and we talk on our, whatever the message boards and all of that.
Hmm.
It's just been so helpful. I don't know even how to like break that down. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because there was just been so many great people. It's hard to pick and choose, or do we talk about all of them? But then that's a lot. And
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I certainly have some highlights of the shows and the guest experiences that really impacted me the most, and
hmm
but that's not to say that others didn't, right? I mean,
right,
it's just the
right.
ones that I find that hit me at just the right time. Are those guests who they just hit me in the chest, with
Yes.
some of their observations and some of the opportunities. Um, so I just am incredibly grateful that they would lend us their time and
hmm
expertise on this show, because they certainly don't have to. They're certainly busy people in
Mm-mm.
their own right, and they're really fantastic. And I think it goes
hmm
back to one that I didn't even add in my own section because you added it in yours, which was the Living with ADHD series, right? That
Oh,
started with Dr. Clark. I mean, that was like double impactful because it was just our people. It was our people being incredibly vulnerable and in demonstrating how ADHD impacts their lives.
absolutely. And such great feedback from the Patreon Discord community, from the podcast, all of
Hmm.
the listeners saying that was so impactful for them to actually hear their stories from them. Not just us relaying the stories, but them really hearing it from them, and how much they related to them. And yeah, very inspiring. I definitely hope and wish, and I'm going to do everything we can to do that again, because I think it was amazing. And I also liked the tips too. We had a series of
Hmm.
podcasts that were just about tips that our listeners found to be helpful. I
That
think
was the
that's
like
great,
ADHD at work,
or
like
something like that.
yeah, that
Yeah.
came right after that, right? The
Yes.
Living with ADHD
Yes.
series. Yeah, absolutely.
And I would.
Anything I think that just allowed the community to sort of leverage its own collective wisdom. Like
Yes.
that's the thing that really excites me about that series.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I specifically want to talk about is the next three things that
Marilyn Paul.
yes, Marilyn Paul. This was a strategy that I took and I ran with. And
Yeah,
so all of my groups that joined me with GPS, they all know what the next three things are. If you're a client and you've ever talked to me about planning and prioritizing, you know what the next three things are. So
right.
I thought it was brilliant that she brought this up and how it worked for her. And just to give you, if you don't remember the episode, it's basically looking at your list and just choosing the next three things. So, what you're doing is you're taking the focus away from everything that happens to be on your list, but just the next three things that you're going to be doing. And you can keep reviewing this and updating it or changing it. And sometimes I do it in study hall, where I'll put in the chat like my next three things, or I'll just write my next thing and the next thing, just to keep you focused on what you're going to be doing next. I loved it. I love it. And it's definitely something I'm going to continue talking about.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's another one that just like that demonstrates the power of simplification,
hmm
because it's so easy to overcomplicate what we do.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the shows that meant a lot to me personally was when we talked about inattentive ADHD misdiagnosis with
Hmm.
Dr. Michelle Frank. I shared my story with how my daughter got diagnosed and how it was almost missed, and so that was very personal for me to share that experience. And I hope that people listening to it it will help someone. So if there's any
Yeah.
doubt or they feel like something isn't quite right and they haven't gotten the answers that they thought they were going to get, just keep being the advocate for your children, for yourself. That definitely meant a lot to me.
Yeah. I that on to that angle, the shows that mean a lot to you personally, because I remember that episode so clearly because you came to it with such clarity and like urgency, like necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is
Mm-hmm.
something I have to do. And I have a couple of those episodes in the last season that were like that for me and scary, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like personally terrifying to do these episodes that poke right at my personal experience with ADHD. Like it's easy to talk in orbit of ADHD, but
Sure.
as soon as you like pull the cover back and realize, oh, yeah, no, that is me. I'm looking in a mirror here. Those two episodes, To Our Old Friend Anxiety,
Yeah.
was one because that's something we both deal with, and Move On, the episode we did on perseveration. Those were hard episodes for me to muster, like in the week prior, because some of these they show up and Nikki will say to me, "Hey Pete, this one's going to be a Pete episode. Go ahead and tell me what you want to talk about," and that's always terrifying in its own right. But we muscle through that. This
Yes.
one, for some reason, I felt like I need, and the Move On episode in particularly, I need to talk about this subject. This
Mm-hmm.
is like important stuff for me personally, and that some people wrote in and said, "Hey, this concept was something that was powerful for me and helped me make more or less lasting change by changing the way I think about my behavior regarding perseveration
Mm-hmm.
and RSD and all that kind of stuff." And so that's really important. And again, demonstrating the power of feedback of the community, like people who can come together and take this little seed of something that Peter Nikki said, and then turn it into something in their lives has been extraordinarily gratifying to watch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely. I would say one of the things that I loved too when we were talking, I'm going actually to loop back around with the
yeah,
ADHD strategies that people shared with us. One of the things that I really enjoyed, some of my favorites, were the most simple ones.
yeah.
So it was the whiteboard for capturing ideas in smaller lists. Remember, there was somebody that wrote in saying that they just have whiteboards on in their hallway. Great. I mean, you get the idea and you capture it right there in your hallway.
Hmm.
Using clipboards instead of binders, having the chore jar. That is definitely something that I have
Right?
recommended again. Yes, because I think it's
Uh,
a great idea. Eliminates that choice of which chore to do. You leave it to chance, right?
right.
And so I love that idea. I also learned this year about the freaky alarm. And
That is a diabolical tool. It is brilliant
yes.
and diabolical.
And I
You want to
even
refresh
recommended
people? What
it.
is it?
Well, I recommended it even today to a client. So I have to admit, I don't have it. I don't have the app, and so I'm not
But you
exactly
don't
sure.
need it.
I
You
don't think
don't
so
need it.
because I just love
No.
the idea
Yeah.
too. Like
Yeah.
I don't need to necessarily figure it out, but there's a puzzle, right? Or there's these different things that when the alarm goes off, it won't turn off until you've solved the puzzle or you've like scanned it with something.
Yeah.
And one of my clients was saying that she puts it in the sink and then she has to like put this puzzle thing together with, I don't know if it's a photo of the sink or something, I'm not exactly
Hmm.
sure what it is, but it's a great way of waking up your brain and so that you don't want to just like go back to sleep. So
Yeah.
brilliant,
Brilliant.
really.
It's brilliant. Something that actually causes you to stop, to break the cycle of whatever you're doing and forces you by annoyance
Yes.
to actually solve a puzzle to move on to something else. It is a diabolical context changing tool. And I think
Yes.
it's really great.
Yes. Now, I have to tell you, one of my very, very favorite strategies came from a listener, and it's not even really a strategy, but it's a great reminder. This person says, "Remember that you will have bad days, days when the meds don't seem to work, or your usual strategies fail you. Recognize these days when they come and accept them. Forgive yourself and move on. If you know it's a low function day, there isn't always something you can do about it. Don't beat yourself up because that will achieve nothing. Accept it and plan for a better tomorrow."
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, it still
That's
gives me
really lovely.
chills.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Love
wonderful.
that. Great reminder.
I think another one that stuck out for me is Focus at Will. Will Henshaw.
Oh my gosh. Fanboy over there.
I got to tell you, that's a pretty big deal. The
It
English
is.
beat. Like, that was amazing.
After I got off the interview, I like went online and looked at the videos. And I'm like, I totally remember that song.
You totally know that song. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you totally know that song. And he's right. Like, it's been like, you go to Lowe's, you know that song. It's playing. Yeah. So that was really fun. And I think the tool is really great too. And we've gotten a number of comments from people who really adopted that. And, right afterwards, Joe in the community, Joseph, was really funny. The way he started talking about it and went straight to the ADHD like buzzsaw channel and was like, yep, this works for me. Got to work. It was just a really terrific. I think the other, we had this pair of episodes. One was the Paradox of Change with Dodge, Dr. Dodge Ray, and then the Trance of Scarcity with Victoria Castle. Those were important episodes, I think, because they deal with the complexity of choice, of the things in our lives that we can choose to, that are actually paradoxes, right? To free ourselves from something, we have to lean into that thing, right? And so that was really useful, and both are very kind. It was incredible to meet and be able to do a series of podcasts with Victoria. She's a delightful person, and of course, finally for me, Brittany Smith, my nerd sister.
Yes.
That she came on the show. She did a great episode with us, and then she did our workshop last month was with her, where she taught us using shortcuts and workflows how to execute Order 66 if you are a Dark Emperor of the Star Wars universe. Then you know what that is all about. So that was really fun.
I can't believe it's taken us this long to get you two connected. That's crazy.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
It's just ridiculous.
You'll have to remind me because my memory is terrible. And I don't know if it was with Dr. Dodge and Victoria Castle, but I remember in this year over time, there's been, and maybe it was about our anxiety issues too, or shows, but something that I've learned personally is to lean into whatever my feelings are. So not to try to push down, like, I'm disappointed, like, be disappointed.
Yeah.
And go through that. And I think it was Dr. Dodge probably, now that I think about it.
That would be on brand for him.
Yeah. Because and that always is something that I think about. Like, if I'm sad, I'm going to allow myself to be sad and not try to pretend like it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has done, I mean, just, it's a practice, right? Like anything.
Sure.
Doesn't happen all the time, but it certainly helps a lot when you're feeling, sad and you just want to be sad.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think so too. And so that episode in particular, I think, is worth listening to multiple times, because I think he really captures something that is foreign, that is foreign and hard to do, and super useful.
I also, go ahead.
Are we going back and forth?
Well, sure. I'm just so excited about talking about this.
I'm excited too. I have one that I have to go back beyond this season for, because I think it actually, I just talk about getting excited about it. It's the YNAB episodes, right? We did this episode with Chelsea, and then we did In the Money Zone, the Q&A. And those two episodes, I think after Chelsea, the way I think about not just money, and now here it is a year later,
right?
I am still thinking about the way she approaches money, the way I now approach time, right? Budgeting time. And so in terms of the longest lasting impact from episode to like today, that has got to be it right now. I still think about lessons in that episode now a full year later, and we're still hardcore YNAB users. So the money's on situation, the budgeting situation is on lock. But I think lessons learned from those episodes have seeped into a lot of the way we talk about, for me, focus and planning your day and planning your week, and all of those things have continued to seep in. And it started and was inspired very much by Chelsea Brennan. That was terrific. It was a metaphor that just really worked for me.
Well, and it makes so much sense when you think of pay yourself first when you're looking at your week. Pay yourself first. Make sure you've got that self-care in and the things that are important to you. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. One of my favorite episodes most recently is the friendship around friendship. And I'll tell you, this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So it was really nice to have Melissa Orlove come and talk about this because, of course, she is an expert in marriage and couples and relationships and ADHD. But I was really interested in getting her take on friendship too, because that is something that I hear a lot in Discord, but also with my clients that it's hard. It's hard with friends and not always feeling like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and letting people down or not letting them down or just the social cues. That was another one that I thought was always interesting when we had Caroline McGuire on because she would talk about that in different aspects too of social cues and just really interesting, I think, to understand more of how your brain works and why some of these things are why they are difficult, and how they're connected.
Well, and then just last week we followed up with this conversation on friendships and that became something that at least for the last week I've been really thinking a lot about, especially that Dunbar graph, like the bullet or the target. Because I think understanding the way, and what we're talking about here is Dunbar wrote this book about the value of friendships and how many, and this chart demonstrates how many friends we can have at each level of intimacy, right? You can have your, 1.5, weirdly, 1.5 intimates talking about your romantic partners. Do you want to be the 0.5? I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about that. Like, I don't know if I want to be the 0.5 in anybody's intimates, but anyway, average 1.5.
That's hilarious. Well, you got to account for the affair. Like, is there?
Well,
is there an affair somewhere happening on either side of the partnership?
And far be it from me to judge a throuple.
Exactly,
I'm not going to judge your throuples.
Like,
that's not going to be me.
They got the average somewhere, somehow.
Do your thing. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Of course, he's probably accounting for separations, divorces, those sorts of things. People move on. I get it. But it sure is fun to think about 0.5s. But then, it gives you, reflecting on this, gives you more permission, I think, to step back and say, okay, friendships are hard. But once I do a cataloging of the relationships that are close to me, there's a reason I don't have 15 close friends, because Dunbar's research says the brain is incapable of that. So maybe I don't have 5, like he says is the average, but if I have 2 or 3, I'm doing pretty well. We're okay. We're okay. And that was that was just a really big lesson for me that there are friendships that are really important to me. And some of them I'm incredibly lucky that I get to foster those friendships every single week. Like this one with you, like you and I have had this friendship for 2 decades. And much of it is because of this show every single week. Like we get to communicate and we have our highs and lows. And I don't need to worry about scheduling lunch with Nikki, like I would with some other friends, because I podcast with Nikki and it's an amazing
you
joy
don't need
in my
too
life.
Much of Nikki. So once a week
there's
is
a
good.
limit. Yeah, there's a limit. And so it's okay. And I think it's okay to just kind of reflect on that. And there are relationships that you need to cultivate and some that that are okay to be transient. And that was a big lesson for me from last week. That was big.
That was a big lesson to me too. And it was also a lesson to be learned in the sense that the 2 or 3 friends that I consider to be really close, on how to foster those friendships, how to continue those friendships, because they are so important to me. And that was definitely something that I walked away from is how to make that continue, because it is important.
Yeah, totally.
All right. So I got to tell everybody to go into the show notes and look at this video of Pete Wright. And the Shocktato.
Always close at hand.
I am not going to do it justice because I don't even really remember all of it. I just remember how did it get started? Like the hot potato? We're talking about something with hot potato? I don't remember.
Yes, well, that's what the Shocktato is, right? It's a device that has these metal pads on it that are electrified. And when you turn it on, the whole idea is you throw it back and forth with your friends or people you hate. And then when the music stops, and it plays the music from the movie Psycho, and if the music stops, then it shocks you. And there are 3 levels of normal, lame, normal, and extreme. And I had it on extreme. And I was so proud of myself on the show because I was able to, like I said, look, Nikki, see how I hold it? I hold it with my fingers not on the metal pads, and it won't shock me, so that I could then play the music. And then I didn't
and then
have
it
my
didn't
finger.
Work or something.
It wasn't working.
It wasn't working. You're kind
I
of
thought the
fiddling
battery
with
was
it.
dead.
Yeah, you're kind of looking at it and you're like, okay, yeah, the battery's dead.
Yeah, the battery wasn't dead, and it shocked the crap out of me. And I dropped the thing, and I think I screamed a little bit, and it was
and I think you jumped back really far.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't in the final show, though. So that was only a live stream moment.
That was a live stream moment, and this is the thing: is that you definitely have to take that clip and put it out to the audience, because it was awesome, and I cried. I was laughing so hard, and then I told my family about it later, and I was laughing like I couldn't even get the story out. I was laughing so hard. It was so fun. But this is the thing that I love about this, and I hope people do consider, and this is not a plug, but it's kind of a plug, is the Patreon community. The live stream can be so much fun, and it really is. We can't make this stuff up. Like, we cannot make up the Shocktato. Like, that was so on point. It was so funny. So anyway, if you've thought about jumping on board, that's the kind of stuff you might get. You just never know.
Pete just might get electrocuted.
Yeah.
Live on YouTube.
It was fantastic.
We did get some listeners who wrote in and shared their thoughts.
Yes.
One of them actually was the Shocktato.
Yes. I think there's a couple of them, actually.
Okay. I don't know where these specifically came from, and they are all anonymous. So if this is you, then you know that we love you and we're reading about you. Do you want to do the first one?
Sure. So anytime Pete nailed articulating the way we ADHD super squirrels often feel or think, that can just be really hard to convey to others that don't quite understand. And I have to say, Pete, I get that a lot. I hear that from my clients a lot, that when people will call for coaching and they have heard of, they listen to the podcast, and that is definitely something I hear over and over again, is how important your stories are to the show and how people resonate with them. And I had even one client say, "I'm a little Pete." It was really cute. I'm like, yeah,
that's so kind.
Pete. Yeah.
Oh,
it's very sweet.
I told you about how my uncle used to introduce me, right?
Yeah, and I can't remember now.
My Uncle Glenn from Tulsa. And he's my dad's brother. And my dad's name is Lloyd. And my name is obviously Peter.
Peter.
When I was young, it was Peter. And my Uncle Glenn, who had a bit of a lockjaw problem, would say to people, "Everybody, this is my brother Lloyd, and this is Lloyd's little Peter." And that's...
I do remember
yeah.
saying that. Oh, that is not a good way to be introduced.
I'm not going to lie. It's a little rough hearing when people say in relation to me, "I'm a little Pete." Because that's not what I think of.
Now you think about that. Yeah.
And yet very, very kind.
Yes.
I am deeply honored by that. This one, again, the Move On episode of January 19th is the one that had the most effect on me. I can't count the number of times I've stopped myself and said, do I need to have a strong opinion about that? It has saved me so much wasted time. And then another direct message to me, I'm honestly sorry for the pain that it caused you to put together the Move On episode. I'm so thankful that you converted it to something useful. If it helps, I can offer how it changed my life. If it doesn't help, just ignore what follows. RSD much? Bless you. I have mostly given up on social media. I will check in if there is something specific that I want to see, but as a daily practice, gone. I added a follow-up statement. If this is something that I do need to have a strong opinion about, what am I going to do? It shouldn't be a license to perseverate. That led me to telling a toxic person in my life, "This hateful thing that you said to me hurt and is unacceptable. I forgive you for it, but I won't put myself in a position that you can continue to do that without consequences." The relationship has changed.
Mm.
The toxic person has taken some care in speech and has limited contact. More importantly, taking that step changed me. I didn't need to flee that relationship because the terms have changed. I
Wow.
love that. Like, I read that and I was crying. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
that is huge. That is huge for me. So I'm really thrilled about that.
Yeah, that's
Mm,
great. Huge
huge.
impact. Mhm.
Yeah.
A lot to learn from that for sure.
Yeah. I think so too.
Well, and I think other people enjoyed watching Pete meet his music idol.
Oh, I'm such a nerd.
Focus at Will,
Yeah.
and agreed. They say it was such a fun story about creativity, entrepreneurship, and productivity. And his story specifically, because it was such a nice tie to what he does, like with the Focus at Will, with all of the music and everything. But one thing I do hope that we do more in the next season as well is having more interviews like him and Dr. Clark, and having these stories that people can listen to and resonate with, and see sort of the path that they took to get there. And, and that I think it's important to see too that they still struggle, but they can still, thrive. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be one or the other. And I really enjoyed his interview, not only to see you be fanboy, but it was a great story to hear somebody do something that he's so passionate about,
Yeah. And that really is it. I mean, that wraps up our season goodness 22. Season
Yes.
22.
Pretty
Off
exciting.
to season 23. We are taking the month of July off. Our first conversation back after the month is going to be an interview with Michelle Frank. She's coming back with us. She'll be with us. The first episode releases August 3rd. Find us, you know where to find us in the Show Talk channel. You can post your show questions in there. Or there are lots of places to do that if you want. Or you can email us if you're on Patreon. You can reach out to us through Patreon as well. Thank you, everybody, for a great season. We sure appreciate you downloading and listening to this show. We appreciate your time and your attention. If you have something to contribute, head over to the Show Talk channel in our Discord server, and you can join us right there by becoming a supporting member at the deluxe level. And, even though we're gone for the month of July, we will still be in the community. We'll be hanging out. I know we're both taking some time off in July, but probably not at the same time. Here's hoping.
Probably not.
Yeah, we'll stagger that, but we will be around. You can still reach us. We'll still be in the community. We just will be planning shows instead of recording and releasing them. So on behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright. We'll see you right back here in August on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.